I'm Welton Gaddy. Welcome to State of Belief, continuing coverage of the 2020 Democratic National Convention across America. The increased number of religious voices at this year's gathering has drawn a lot of attention, and so has overt recognition of secular Americans. Sarah Levin is very busy this week working with Secular Democrats of America as well as with the DNC Interfaith Council. And so we are fortunate to get a few minutes with her. Sarah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Make America constitutional again. Religious freedom on the ballot. That's a great name. Now tell us what it is and what do we need to know about it?
Sure. Well, it's a question of what it was because it was yesterday as we're filming, but luckily it is online so folks can watch it on YouTube, on Facebook, and today I'll be uploading it to the seculardems.org website. It was the inaugural event of Secular Democrats of America as a partner organization of the DNC, and it was really a convening of secular Democrats, both delegates and DNC members who were tuning into the convention, but really Democrats and progressives across the country to talk about what's on the ballot this year, about religious freedom, separation of church and state, all of the issues that are taking place, not just at the federal level, but also at the state level. It was really exciting to have not just two members of Congress on a panel to discuss these issues, but also two state lawmakers from Arizona and Florida. So we had Congressman Raskin and Congressman Huffman, who are the co-chairs of the Congressional Free Thought Caucus, which works to advance science-based policy, promotes separation of church and state, but also champions the rights of non-theists, atheists, agnostics, and so on. And Representative Salmon, Athena Salmon of Arizona, and Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith of Florida really brought the state perspective of what's going on in terms of religious freedom in their states, whether it be over $1 billion of vouchers going to private religious schools that are allowed to discriminate on the basis of religion in Arizona. There are a number of issues that Representative Salmon spoke about, and it was really a conversation about what's going on kind of at all levels of government that we need to be concerned about as Democrats. What do we envision a better version of ourselves when we think about religious freedom moving forward, and what is on the ballot this year in November? What do we need to be thinking about as voters who care deeply about these issues, as activists who care deeply about these issues, and really drawing a contrast between the Christian nationalist agenda that privileges religion over non-religion and specific religious beliefs over other religious beliefs under this administration, but also across the country at the state and local level, and what do we need to do to rectify that and restore true religious freedom?
Sarah, tell the people who are watching us again how they can see that, because it sounds so important, and we want to be sure that as many people see it as possible.
Absolutely. So you can go to, by the time this is aired, you can go to seculardems.org and the video will be there. And you can also go to the YouTube channel of Secular Democrats of America. And if you are on Facebook, you can also like and follow the Secular Democrats of America Facebook page. And the video is there for you to watch.
I have to ask you this question because I thought about it immediately, knowing that we were going to talk at some point. What did you think of the opening prayer for the first night? And did you all talk about that yesterday?
There were certainly folks who emailed me questions about that who were not particularly happy. I do think that it's important to note that this is the first time that humanists and atheists have been included on this level at the Democratic Convention. So on the one hand, I can absolutely say this is the most inclusive Democratic convention in history. I'm going to be very shortly here joining the second set of programming for the DNC Interfaith Council, which is going to feature prominently a number of humanists, as well as Congressman Huffman, who is a humanist but also openly identifies as a non-theist. But you know, this is the first go, right? You know, did I feel that every single aspect of the convention is, you know, something that was as inclusive as it could have been? No. I'm sure I'm not the only Democrat who has some criticisms about the convention from a variety of perspectives. But I do feel that while, you know, I much would have preferred the opening prayer to not be so sectarian, or to perhaps include multiple perspectives, including a humanist perspective. I do think that the DNC has taken major steps in the right direction of including the non-religious. And I think that just needs to be a continued conversation. And it's I think it's only going to get better from here now that the non-religious and humanists have a seat at the table.
What do we need to know about the DNC Interfaith Council?
Oh, absolutely. It's an organization. Well, it's a council of the DNC that is really focused on building interfaith relationships and now, of course, engaging interfaith constituencies with the Biden-Harris campaign, and really getting out the vote, getting folks excited, but also listening to those constituencies and their concerns. And, you know, it's a big tent party. So, you know, these things can be very challenging. But a few things that we've done earlier this year is hold national calls where we've invited faith and humanist leaders across the spectrum for a listening session to find out what was on their mind, what were the challenges that they're facing. And we will be developing some resources as well by demand from those listening sessions. So, you know, we're getting folks asking about things like how they can message on certain issues that, you know, maybe there are more conservative members who are aligned to the Democratic Party are uncomfortable with. And, you know, something I've really been advocating and I've been discussing at length with my co-chairs is, you know, and I know something we're all really on the same page about is how do we take back and how do we help our supportive constituencies take back the mantle of religious freedom? How do we give folks talking points? How do we start promoting programming that can put us in that direction? Because we certainly want to get away from a place where we feel like we're ceding that territory to the Republican Party. And one thing I've really done is with working with my co-chairs and other interfaith organizations is trying to advocate to Democrats, whether they be state chairs or local committee members or just active volunteers. And this is part of what I also do with Secular Democrats of America, is to really say, hey, you need to talk about religious freedom more. Let's, don't avoid the topic. We have the upper hand here in terms of where the Democratic Party stands on these issues. We just need to have the right language, and we need to not be afraid to talk about it. And giving candidates the tools and the confidence they need to speak about their faith or lack of faith authentically without feeling like they're going to be stepping into sort of a political quagmire, because it doesn't have to be that way. And I would point to Mayor Pete Buttigieg as a prime example of that, of someone who very authentically expressed his faith, but also was very inclusive of the non-religious through his campaign. And he was the first candidate, I think it was the first primary debate, to bring up church-state separation. And if I remember correctly, the last debate that he was in, I believe, before he was out of the running, each candidate was asked to provide a quote or a mantra, something instead of closing remarks. And he, as well as a few others, quoted scripture. But what distinguished his closing remarks is that before he quoted scripture, he said, and I would never impose my views on anyone else. And then he quoted it, which was a way to me as a non-theist was communicating to me, this is something I believe in very strongly. What I'm about to quote from the Bible, speaks to me. But I want to make clear for those of you who are not Christian, who are not believers, that this is me speaking personally, but I would never impose these views on anyone else. And that was a very sophisticated, nuanced way of authentically expressing his faith while also bringing non-religious folks like me with him. And so I point to him as an example that as Democrats, we can be better about messaging on these issues, and we should absolutely be talking about them more.
And Sarah, please, just before we go, briefly tell us about Secular Democrats of America.
Absolutely. It is a network of secular Democrats that is organizing folks to bring their non-religious identity with them in their democratic organizing. And so we're advocating for respect and inclusion of the non-religious within the Democratic Party, but also really using it as a space to highlight the issues that secularists in the Democratic Party care about so much, whether that be discrimination on the basis of religion, with broad religious exemptions, whether it be funneling public dollars to private religious schools that aren't held to the same standards, whether it be, in terms of curriculum or discrimination, whether it be how those issues impact reproductive rights, LGBTQ rights. We have our key issues. You can check them out on seculardems.org. But really, it's empowering secular Democrats, mobilizing them, and trying to find ways to identify those shared values, not just among the non-religious, but also our partners in the faith community who may not be non-religious, but they are secularists in that they support very strongly the separation of church and state and how it protects both government and religion. And so we're really trying to forge those partnerships to create a formidable voting bloc around these issues, because the religiously unaffiliated, that term encompasses a lot of different people. It doesn't encompass non-theists, but it also includes people of faith who just aren't affiliated with a denomination, or people who are spiritually religious. But that 1 in 4 Americans that is now religiously unaffiliated, if you look at where they stand on issues, they are more united on issues than even if the white evangelicals on certain things, sometimes by even as much as a 10-point difference. And so if rather than focus, while on the one hand, we're providing a dedicated space for Democrats or atheists, agnostic, humanists, non-theists to be their authentic whole selves and organize in that fashion and make sure they're represented. At the same time, in those spaces, we are welcoming those who are not non-theists to advocate for the constitutional separation of church and state together, because it benefits all faiths and none.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for what you're doing. It's a really important aspect of the convention for us to understand. Look for more of our convention coverage, including interviews with leaders, activists, and delegates all week at stateofbelief.com. I'm Welton Gaddy. Thanks for watching.